Today, July 10th, 2012, is the 7-year anniversary of Hurricane Dennis. Now, for those of you who have lived here for the past few years, you may remember this hurricane quite well. We actually evacuated to Tallahassee for this hurricane. But as you can see right here is a radar loop that I found on einstein.atmos.colostate.edu, which contains a bunch of radar loops of landfalling hurricanes. And this is the one of Dennis. I believe it's from the Panama City radar. Dennis made landfall just west of Navarre Beach, Florida on July 10, 2005 at about 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. It was a double eyewall system. It made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane with 120 mile-an-hour winds. Since the eye was extremely small, the strongest winds were contained from around Pensacola to around Florosa. And right here at the beginning of the loop, the hurricane was actually really strong. It had winds of about 150 miles an hour. But before it made landfall, it hit cold water and started a weakening phase. And then there was a disruption in the eye wall right here, which pretty much caused the hurricane to weaken even further. And once it hit land, as you can see, it pretty much just fell apart. Now, as you can see, where we live, we got hit by the outer eye wall. But anywhere west of Pensacola pretty much had little to no effects from the storm, because the west side of the storm pretty much fell apart completely once it made landfall. So as you can see, Tallahassee still got outer rain bands, and it was within the tropical storm force wind envelope of the hurricane. Let me tell you my story. So it all started when we were dealing with Tropical Storm Cindy, which was making landfall in Louisiana. Now, we still got all kinds of wind and rain from Cindy, but it was nothing too bad. Anyway, we kept our, this is around when Dennis was a tropical storm and was continuing to strengthen. And we decided that we would evacuate to Tallahassee. We would go east instead of north like we did for Ivan. Because for Ivan, we evacuated to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But the storm pretty much followed us. So we figured if we didn't want the storm to follow us again, we would have to go east or west. So we decided to go to Tallahassee. The day we left, which was July 9th, what we did was we rented a Buick. I'm not sure what model it was, but it was a Buick, because at the time we owned a Ford Windstar, which, for those of you who have owned Windstars, know that they're some of the biggest pieces of crap ever. And we didn't want the van breaking down on us while we were evacuating, so we rented a car in order to drive to Tallahassee with. The day we left early in the morning at about 7 or 8 a.m. And we took I-10 all the way here to Tallahassee. When we got to Tallahassee, we drove around for a little bit, and just to see what it was like. And we checked into the Hampton Inn and Suites along I-10. This hotel in particular right here. After that, we went to a kennel. I'm not sure where it is, but we boarded our cat Alex. At the time, we only had one cat. We still have Alex, but we now have 4 other cats. We boarded our cat Alex at the kennel. I'm not sure where the kennel is, but we boarded him there. And after that, we went to Target to get some supplies. We pretty much were there for about 20 minutes. We got stuff like snacks and flashlight batteries and stuff, so that we would be prepared to ride out the aftermath anyways when we got back. We went and ate dinner at Sunny's Real Pit Barbecue, and then we went back to the hotel. The next morning we got up. It was raining. The outer bands had already started to move in. It was at around this time probably. And we went and ate breakfast at the Village Inn, which was in the parking lot. And then after that while it was raining, it began, while we were eating, it started raining so hard that if you were out there for literally less than half a second, you'd already be drenched. The wind hadn't started blowing yet, it was just rain. So my dad told my mom, my brother and I that he would bring the car around here so that we could run out to the car without having to go too far or getting too wet, but we still got drenched anyways. So after that we just drove around because we had checked out of our hotel and we couldn't check into our next hotel until like 1:30 p.m. So we had quite a bit of time to kill. We pretty much just drove around town and drove all over the place, and eventually we stopped at an Albertsons in order to get some more snacks. And I remember while we were checking out, my mom was telling the lady, well, let's just hope the power doesn't go out here. And the lady behind the cashier desk said, the power always goes out here. I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of weird. So I'm guessing that place had really bad wiring. But anyway, going back out to the car, we got drenched once again. And my brother and I, we had umbrellas. This is back when we used to use umbrellas. But we were going across the parking lot to the car, and my brother's umbrella went inside out, because at this point was when the wind started to blow. We drove around some more, and after about another 45 minutes of driving, we stopped at a gas station to go to the convenience store. My dad was pumping gas, and we went into the convenience store. Our umbrellas blew inside out again, and so they were pretty much useless. And there was a little gap between, there was about a 5-foot gap between the gas station awning and the convenience store. Went right through that, still got drenched again. And we went into the convenience store. There was a McDonald's built into it. And I remember they had the air conditioning on full blast in there, so I was shivering because it was freaking freezing in there, because I was drenched, dripping wet. And we all know that if you're dripping wet and you have air conditioning, it makes you really cold. So there was this girl who looked at me like, what the heck is your problem? And walked into the McDonald's. But anyways, we weren't in there for long. We got our stuff, went back out to the car, got drenched once again. Got back in the car, and it was around this point where the car started smelling like wet dog. Yum yum. So, drove around for some more. We ended up stopping at a Borders store. And for those of you who don't already know, Borders is no longer in business. But anyway, it was a Borders at the time. We went in and looked at some books and stuff. And I remember while we were in there, there was this kids play center area where it had like toy trains and stuff like that, and there was a little TV in there, and the movie Chicken Run was playing. So I sat there and watched Chicken Run for about 5 minutes. Just so you know, I was 9 years old at the time. And then I went up to a window and saw that the rain was pouring down hard as ever, and the wind was blowing at about 40 miles an hour. Probably gusting at around 60. And there was water cascading off of the roof of the building. So the area where the water was dripping off of the building, there was about a 6-inch puddle of water there. And elsewhere around the Borders, there was big puddles starting to form, and the parking lot was pretty much submerged under an inch of water, the whole parking lot. I know this may not sound like much, but this is just in a short amount of time, just so you know. So I went and got a Bart Simpson comic book. I actually still have the comic book. It no longer has the cover. No, the cover fell off a long time ago. They don't really make very sturdy covers for comic books. But anyway, I still have it. I don't know where it is right now. But anyway, my dad was looking at some magazines, and above the magazine stands, there was this big tarp. I'm thinking, what the? And then I looked up. Big water stains were starting to form on the ceiling. And there was water dripping from them, thinking, oh, well, what do you know? So, the ceiling had some major leakage going on. We went back out, got drenched again, umbrellas went inside out again. By then we were practically wading through water, practically ankle deep water. Although where we were parked, we were actually in a higher spot in the parking lot. So, we didn't have to wade through too much water. Anyway, at this point, the little handles you use to close the car door, they were starting to fill up with water, so we had to get a bunch of paper towels and sop up the water, but that didn't help any, because as soon as we opened the door again, blammo, fill up with water again. So, at that point, it was about time to check in. We drove to the hotel, which was this hotel right here. It was a Fairfield Inn. So, we parked underneath this thingy, the thingy that you park underneath by the door, in order to unload our luggage and get into the hotel. And I remember I was looking at water pouring off of it, because as you can see, there's little creases right here in the roof, and water was flowing off of those, and it looked like the roof was peeing. And I remember laughing at that, and I told my brother, and no. So, the wind was still blowing the rain underneath the awning. It was blowing north, because we were on the east side of the storm. Then we got into the hotel. The hotel was jammed. The lobby had like 1 million people in it. And they were all talking and stuff. The news was on, stuff about Dennis. And eventually the power went out. So we're sitting there with no power, everyone clambering up a storm. And I remember when the power went out, we actually ended up seeing somebody from school in the actual hotel. She, her mom, her dad, and her grandpa were staying at this exact hotel that we were staying at. She was in the grade below me. But anyway, I also remember a lady coming into the lobby saying, hey, can I have a shower cap? And I remember there was this little girl sitting at the desk like she was checking in, but she really wasn't. And she was pretty much copying my dad. My dad was sitting or standing with his arms crossed on the desk, and she was doing the exact same thing. So eventually the power started to flicker back on, but it kept going on and off. Just on and off. Eventually we checked in, got to our room, and we pretty much just sat there. I pretty much sat there and drew. My mom and my brother were drawing this thing about the family. It's a piece of paper that I've lost. I don't know where it is. I know it's somewhere, but I can't find it. Anyway, it was pretty much about the characteristics of the family. It said, the Howard family, Hurricane Dennis, 7/10/05. I remember it said, Greg the talkative and clueless, that's me. Then Mark the angry and bullheaded. And there was a drawing of him with steam coming out of his nose and horns, because at the time he had some really bad anger issues. because he was about 4 or 5 years old at the time. Dad, the loud and irritable, because he's easily annoyed. And I forgot what Mom's was. Oh yeah, Mom, the grumpy and demanding, because she's also easily annoyed. But again, she's Mom, so... Then Alex, the angel, which was our cat. I remember looking out the window at this field right here and seeing the rain finally let up. It was about 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30 p.m. at this point. The power came back on. My parents watched the news. My mom was really stressing out. She thought our house was going to be destroyed. But for some reason, I knew in the back of my head that it wouldn't be that bad. Because it really wasn't. Anyway, for the first time in the entire day, at about 3 o'clock p.m., the sun came out. Everything started drying up. But, lo and behold, about half an hour later, cloudiness came again. It started to drizzle again. While we were watching the news, we decided it was time for dinner. There was a Taco Bell right in the parking lot of the hotel. This Taco Bell right here. So we went, walked in there, got our food, and lo and behold, the people that we saw from school in the lobby were there. I'm thinking, wow, we just keep following you, don't we? But anyway, walked back to our hotel, ate our Taco Bell, and continued watching the news for quite a while. I continued drawing, and then went to bed. Next morning we woke up, bright and sunny, very humid. We walked out this door right here. Our car was parked right over here somewhere, I believe. And I remember my brother falling down the stairs and calling me an idiot because he thought I pushed him when I really didn't. But anyway, we left. We went to the kennel, got our cat. We left the next day, July 11th. Back along I-10. To Highway 285. I remember when we were driving down 285, I remember seeing all the trees were bent, facing north. All of the trees were bent. Anyway, we got back, and just as I thought, the damage was pretty much the same as we had from Ivan. Your typical signs down, billboards down, trees uprooted. Highway 98 on Recluse Island. This whole stretch of road right here was obliterated. Again, in less than a year. Because Ivan had obliterated it 10 months before. They had just finished repairing this road when Dennis went and obliterated it all over again. As you can see, this is historical imagery. That's 1994. You can see all those sand dunes and sea oats around here. Opal in 95 wiped them all out. This is from 99, by the way. And they started going back. So you see this is one from 2003, 03, 03, 03, 05. After both Ivan and Dennis. As you can see, it's completely white here again. If you zoom in, you can kind of see where the dunes used to be. And where the water flowed over the island. This area was completely filled with water. It was that way for like a month. And this area was almost, the storm surge almost cut through the island right here. And Noriego Point was pretty badly damaged too. I actually have I bookmarked some pictures by Noah This shows some of the damage, storm surge damage from the hurricane. As you can see, it's pretty obvious that there was a storm going through here. Yeah, see, half the road's missing. Right along the dotted line, it starts crumbling. You notice this side of the road is almost perfectly fine, but right here it's all... They actually had to dredge some of the sand from the sound and put it on the island so they could rebuild the road. And yeah, those were what's left of the sand dunes. This is only one of the pictures. If you looked at the beach, you can see the Gulf of Mexico from the road. Most of the damage pretty much from Dennis was storm surge related. There wasn't very much wind damage. The damage to our house was not really that bad, actually. We didn't really have any structural damage. We only lost one shingle, which I was surprised. There was a piece of siding that Ivan had blown off that we reattached prior to Dennis. It was loosened. I think I'll show you some pictures of those. This is a picture of our roof. As you can see, if you look towards the middle of the picture, those are the areas where there are missing shingles. Most of these shingles actually were blown off from Hurricane Ivan. But we never actually got the roof repaired from Ivan, so I guess you could say Dennis somewhat furtherly exacerbated the problem. This piece of siding is right by our garage. Uh, that actually got re-loosened from probably a cold front that had high wind gusts. But anyway, that piece of siding pretty much looked like that right after Dennis. Ivan had done the same thing. We bolted it back into place, but I guess that wasn't enough support to keep it in place, so it blew right back again. This piece of siding also had the same problem. It was right next to the other piece, if you look in the lower right corner of the picture. But this one wasn't as bad as you can imagine because the wind was coming from the north. This piece of siding was also by our garage. You might notice that there are some nails in place that were put there to secure it back in place after Ivan, because Ivan had blown that piece of siding off, and actually we had it landed about a few yards from the house. We were able to recover it and put it back up there, but Dennis came and loosened it back up again, and we've just never gotten to tightening it back. As you can see, it's kind of hanging there if you look closely. Anyway, we still had power after Dennis, surprisingly, as we did not after Ivan. But pretty much the rest of the damage we received was basically big tree limbs knocked down and stuff. Just a pain in the butt to clean up. Anyway, and we also had to clean up our neighbor's yard because they also evacuated for Dennis, and we figured, hey, they're not back yet. We might as well go clean up their yard. So we went and tried to clean up as best we could. After cleaning up our yard, which only took about a day, since we had experience with cleaning up after these storms. And yeah. Okay. Anyway, that was our story for Hurricane Dennis. 7 years later, July 10th, 2005.